to know and understand your child. Oh, sorry, we just had an interruption on recording. Sorry about that, everybody. The best way to know and understand your child is to observe their behaviour. So their behaviour will tell you more about them than anything else, particularly when we're talking about preschool children. And now I am having IT challenges. Let's see if we can get that working again. So our natural temperament, when we're saying observe behaviour, our natural temperament affects our moods and emotions, and it also determines how we respond to or cope with different situations. And just think about a few of these statements here that we often hear people say. They'll say, oh, he's shy, or she's too shy. Why is my child so bossy? Or, we might accuse our children of being contrary. We might say, oh, you can't please him. Doesn't matter what we do. That my child's too sensitive, or my child's too clingy. Why won't he leave my side? Or my child is dominant. There's lots of judgments we might make, or observations we might make, and judgments other people can make about our children and their natural personalities. So when we find ourselves saying these things, then we need to be saying, actually, what's that behavior telling me? If we understand their natural temperament, we can then set realistic expectations of them and their behavior. We can learn how they learn best, so we can understand the best way we can teach and support their learning, which will set them up for success. But above all, it will improve your relationship with your child, because you'll develop a much better understanding of them and what they need and what makes them tick. So if we set our child up for success by understanding their behaviors and their triggers, then we are going to reduce behavioral challenges significantly, because most behavioral challenges are just a form of communication. So if we can better grow our own awareness of our child's needs, then we can reduce the behavioral challenges. So when we talk about better meeting the social and emotional needs of our children, if we look at, say, different temperaments and different scenarios, imagine your child in some different scenarios, like, does your child struggle in busy social situations? Or are they a natural entertainer? Do you find that if there's people around, that they step up and they want to entertain everybody? And they can sometimes be labeled as a show-off, which is quite negative, when actually they're just naturally extroverted. Some children find it difficult to cope with lots of stimulation, so lots of bright lights, or lots of movement, lots of activity, and lots of noise. Some children are naturally good communicators. Others might be slower to develop their verbal linguistic skills. And often, if children are slower to develop language, they can get quite frustrated, and you will sometimes see that they'll be quick to temper and might lash out at other children. So understanding how our children communicate, and understanding too that we all learn at different levels, different levels, yes, but different paces. So some children will be naturally good communicators and will speak early. Other children might not develop their verbal skills until they're closer to 3. But that doesn't mean that they're not a genius. It just means that they're not naturally good communicators, and it might take them a little bit longer to learn that skill. Some children will struggle more than others to regulate their emotions. So it's not bad behavior, it's a form of communication. It's the child saying that I'm really struggling here and I need a lot more support. So there are many ways we can support our children by understanding their natural dispositions. And when we talk about the idea of genius, if we look at the different temperaments of children, you might have a dynamo genius child who's more intuitive, who's really creative, really busy, likes to use their imagination, very good at entertaining themselves and coming up with new ideas, and will often be there, creating imaginary scenes and scenarios. Sometimes these children too can have a really active imagination and might see things that you can't see or hear things that you can't hear. So they're naturally intuitive and tapped into that part of the brain. Whereas we have the opposite, children who are more sensory, they're more connected to the temporal lobe. So they're very sensitive to the environment, very sensitive to other people's feelings. And they like to be very practical and hands-on in their learning. And then we have the common terms of introverted and extroverted children. So children who appear shy might be introverted children. That doesn't mean it's a negative thing. It doesn't mean they're shy. It just means they take a bit more time to warm to social situations or new people. But when they are comfortable in a situation, then you'll see that perceived shyness disappear. But because it's not the same really as being introverted, shyness can have a very negative connotation. It just means, like I say, they're slower to warm to new situations. And then we have the star of the show, the extroverted, really strong communicators, who are more blaze energy, life and soul of the party children. So, and we are all a mix of these different energies. So nobody is one energy, we're a mix of them all. But you will find that your child is dominant in one aspect. So when you understand that, you can set them up for success. And we'll talk about how you do that as we go on. So these energies directly relate to the brain. So you can see we've got the 4 energies here, with the intuitive at the top and sensory at the bottom. So if we look at the map of the brain here, tempo energy means that the temporal lobe for your child is a lot more dominant. So they are going to express themselves as a tempo sensory sensitive child, whereas the opposite is the dynamo, which is more the frontal lobe and intuition. So they're going to be a lot busier and active imagination. And like I say, you've got the left brain, which is introverted, and the right brain, which is more extroverted. That's common terminology that you're probably quite familiar with. Nobody has only one part of their brain active. Remember, we're talking about your child's temperament will be based on the dominant part of the brain that is more active than other parts. We all use the whole brain. This is why, interestingly, they say the more parts of the brain you can engage in a learning experience, the more likely it is that your child will remember what they've learned. And that's because you're tapping into more parts of the brain, so there's more opportunities for the brain to recall that information. So if we look at each of the genius energies, dynamo genius children are creative, they're busy, and they have a very active imagination. They love variety and are very easily bored. So you will hear a dynamo genius, you'll hear it in their languaging, you'll see it from observing them. They're very good at entertaining themselves and using their imagination. They're not very patient generally. They like lots to do, and they'll soon tell you if they're bored, or you'll see it in their behavior. They don't like too much structure, so that you might find that they resist too much structure, particularly if rules are changing. So it's really important, if you do have structure, routines, rhythms, rituals, it's important for the dynamo genius that they're consistent, because you need them to buy into it. And if you change them, they don't like rules anyway, so you're not going to get their buy-in. They are full of enthusiasm, but they can struggle to regulate their abundance of energy. So these are the dynamo energizer bunnies. They like to be busy and like to have their brain occupied. Blaze Genius are they're like natural born entertainers. They're very confident and outgoing. They're great communicators. Blaze Energy children will often talk early, and once they start talking, they never stop. They're really strong in communication. They can appear to be a little bossy and dominant because their enthusiasm will sometimes take over, and they just love people. So they can get carried away with, enthusiasm and energy and, following the tribe. They can often get themselves into trouble because they're often the noisy ones that people notice. And often they're not the instigator of trouble, but they are there as being very vibrant and outgoing. So people will often point their finger and say it was them when actually it could have been another child, and they're just so full of it that they're not noticing. So they are social butterflies, and they love group activities and experiences. So you can see that's quite a different energy from the dynamo energy we were talking about before. Tempo energy are different again. They're very sensitive. Remember, this is the temporal lobe, temporal part of the brain, which is more closely linked to our senses. So tempo energy children are very sensory sensitive. They like a very calm environment. They thrive on predictability and routine, and they don't like to be rushed. So you'll know if your child's a tempo genius because they will become stressed if the environment, the routines are not predictable, and if things keep changing, that can be quite stressful for them. Tempo energy children make friends really easily, but they like more one-on-one friendships or small group friendships. They can become overwhelmed in big group situations. So still very sociable like the Blaze energy, but it's more closer, small group relationships. They are very naturally empathetic. That can mean they can take on the feelings of other people and become overwhelmed by strong energies, strong emotions, sorry, or overstimulating environments. So you might find that in a loud, noisy, same thing, in a loud, busy environment, or a very bright and stimulating environment, you may find that they withdraw a little bit and just need time, time to themselves and time away from the busyness of everything. Oops, sorry, gone backwards. And then the steel energy, the fourth of the energies, is our steel energy genius are more introverted. They are naturally reserved. They can appear to be shy, but it's not that they're shy necessarily. It's that they just take a little bit more time to warm. Steel energy children will be the quiet observers, and very often they're not quick to try new things. They like to observe what's happening, and we're more likely step in and try new things when they feel confident they know what's expected of them, when they feel confident they know what to do. They like to know the rules and boundaries. These will be the children who will tell you if somebody else breaks the rules, because they think rules and boundaries are really important, and the consistency with them rules and boundaries is really, really important to them, because they will follow them, but they'll also support others in following them too. They are resistant to change. They feel insecure when they have a sense of when the environment feels unpredictable, or when things are changing all the time, or if you move house and you've got a steel energy child, it's really important you give them as much information about what's going to happen. Am I taking my bed? Am I taking my cuddly toys? Is my dog coming with me? They'll need to know all of that information in order to feel safe and secure. Incidentally, all children will, because we all use all areas of the brain, but steel energy children would struggle more than most. So, and steel genius children are the young scientists of this world. So they are naturally inquisitive. They love to know things, they seek out knowledge, and they are logical and analytical in their thinking. So they really are a natural little Einstein. And if we understand these geniuses, and if we observe our children and their behavior, you cannot choose for them which way you want them to be. This is about their inborn strengths, their inborn dispositions. You can't change them. If you try and change anything, all you're going to do is cause stress and dull your child down. The best thing we can do is recognize their genius, follow their interests, and focus on that and bring the very best out in them. If we can do that, then we enhance their cognitive abilities, their social and emotional intelligence, and their physical development. If we can focus on their strengths, we build their confidence, their independence, and their critical thinking skills. Because if children are free to be themselves, if they're free to follow their own interests and express their true genius, then they are going to go out and explore the world. They're going to be confident in their own abilities. And then if we have that, they're going to learn a lot faster and learn a lot more than if we do the opposite. And understanding their genius too, like I said before, helps us to teach in the way that they learn best. So we're meeting them where they're at, we're meeting their individual needs, and we're personalized the learning based on their strengths. So just to talk about some scenarios, for a Steel Energy genius who's naturally introverted, then if you understand your child's an introvert, then that they're going to need a lot more support in busy social situations. So if you're going to start a new school or a new playgroup, then it's really important to them that they have the data, because we know they're logical and analytical. So you give them as much information about what's going to happen before you go. Then, excuse me, then you might go and do transition periods. So go for short periods of time and build up so that they become more comfortable in that situation. So that would really support a Steel Energy extroverted child. If we look at the opposite, introverted child, if we look at the opposite, at extroverted children, then they might need to understand what's going to happen, who their friends are going to be. They might need to meet their teacher. They might need to understand who they speak to if they're worried about something, because remember, their dominant personality strength is being really strong communicators and people. They really love people. So they need to know who's going to be there, who their teacher is, what questions to ask, and to who. And then looking at the tempo genius, they would need to know what the rules and the structures are, what the timetable of the day is, so that they know what to expect in advance. And then Dynamo Genius, again, they also need to understand the rules and structure, but they need to know what the task is, what's expected of them. They need to know the big picture. So we're going to school, we're going to learn this, and this, or we're going to daycare, this is what we're doing. If you focus on this is what we're going to do every day, then you're likely to get them engaged, because remember, they like to be busy, they like lots to do. So knowing what's going to happen and what's expected would really support them. It's so critically important we personalize learning opportunities for children by recognizing these unique geniuses and their unique strengths, because a one-size-fits-all model does not work. We are all uniquely different. And I love this quote by Aristotle: there is nothing so unequal than the equal treatment of unequal people. Because we're not equal, we have to recognize the individual needs of every child. And this image perfectly demonstrates that. The child in the wheelchair cannot see over the fence. If you see in image 1, we're treating everyone the same, and we believe that that's fair and equal. Well, it might be equality. Everybody has the same box to stand on, but it doesn't matter how high, it doesn't matter that they have the same box if you still can't see over the fence. So it's really important that we recognize our children for the amazing geniuses that they are. We focus on what they're good at, we focus on what they're interested in, and then we create learning situations around that. I hope that makes sense. And I'm not sure if we've got any questions coming in, but hi, Carly. I've just seen Carly saying hi in chat. Sorry, I'm just coming back to the slides. Yeah, so important that we have equitable practice more than we have equality. And through equitable practice, we're giving all children the same opportunities to learn. And that does mean we have to treat them differently. It does mean that we have to look at their unique personalities and focus on their strengths and their interests. And if we can do that and do it well, then we are providing equitable opportunities for our children. So I'm going to finish on the presentation, stop sharing screen, and just open up to any questions. Oh, thanks for your comment, Loveness. She says very insightful. That's cool.
Hey, Angie, I do have a question, because I have my child is a bit of Blaze and Dynamo as he's growing up. Is it possible that he would lose those traits when he grows up, like as he grows older?
I hope not, Sam. I hope not. Too often, education experiences ask us to focus on our weaknesses. We say every child has to leave school or start school, wherever it might be, and they all have to reach the same milestones. That's okay if those milestones are a minimum standard, right? We all have to have, for example, basic numeracy and literacy. Of course we do. We all have to have a good understanding, basic communication skills, be able to read and write. And there are things that all of us must be able to do. In that regard, everybody must have the opportunities to learn them skills, but learn them at their own pace. So if you've got a Blaze Energy child who's a naturally good communicator, then they're going to learn to talk earlier, they're going to learn to read earlier, most likely, and they're going to develop social skills earlier than other children. And often we can compare children and stress about our own children by saying, oh, well, my child, and it happens all the time, school gate conversations, oh, my child's up to level 8 on reading. And then you might be left feeling, well, my child's only at level 5. I'm really worried about my child. Don't be. Know that they're at level 5 and just allow them to progress at their own pace and continue to support them, because that might not be your child's strength, but your child might be excelling in science, in technology, or in other areas of the curriculum. So it's really important that we meet them where they're at, we focus on what they're good at, and then we scaffold from there, that we don't compare them to other children and expect everybody to be the same, because we're not. It's about bringing the best out in your child, whatever that might look like. So to your question, Sam, will my child change? Sometimes we can learn skills that might, so for example, a Blaze Dynamo, so your child's between the two, Sam, they can be very enthusiastic, and they might need support in calming down, in being able to self-regulate, and to slow down and to not talk so much in class. There are things like that will be a challenge for him sometimes because of his natural exuberance and his personality. They will be learned skills. The last thing we want to do, though, is have him think that that I am bad and there's something wrong with me because we're always telling him not to be who
Oh,
he naturally is.
yes.
What you want him to do is understand. Gradually he will, is to understand that everybody's different. You can teach children this. Everybody's different, and when you're running around distracting other children, it's hard for them to concentrate. And so have realistic expectations, and build his ability to regulate gradually. And it will happen, but you don't want to be dulling down his enthusiasm at the same time. So it's a good thing too in schools. If you know your child's natural temperament, there's nothing wrong with going to speak to the teacher and saying, my child is naturally exuberant and really enthusiastic and loves to talk to other children. And then between you come up with a plan how you're going to support that child in sometimes knowing when to calm it down a little bit, and knowing that, that's for the playground or that's for a different lesson. Do you know what I mean, Sam? So it's making sure that we are not making them wrong for being who they are, but we're giving them the skills to self-regulate so that they can calm themselves and help, but support them in doing so. Just like with a shy or a more introverted child, you don't put them in a situation where you expect them to be the life and soul of the party, and you expect them to perform for everybody. To expecting an exuberant child to be calm,
Quiet.
steady, and quiet is the same as expecting an introverted child to stand up in front of a class full of people and entertain them. It's just that because sometimes in traditional schooling or in classroom situations, they can be the challenging children to manage. Doesn't mean that they're wrong. It just means we need to find another way to support them.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's hard when you have like that kind of child, and your uh other parents are calling your child names like hyperactive child, something like that. It's
That's really
really
hard.
hard getting
That's really
judgment
hard.
from other parents who don't understand their natural genius. That's kind of
Yes.
the struggle.
It is a struggle, and the more, it's a shame that everybody doesn't understand the uniqueness of the individual. Yeah, it's a true gift to be naturally sociable and comfortable in them situations. Well, it's something I'd have loved to have had. That was not me, but then I know I'm a genius in different ways. So yeah, it is a true gift, and the last thing we want to do is have our children feel that there's something wrong with them,
True.
or that they're wrong because they're not. Yeah. And celebrate it, Sam. He's perfect the way he is. And I bet he makes you laugh.
What's the best way to tell other people that, hey, he's not like he's just
Yeah. Yeah,
how do
you
you
just
cope up with that?
yeah, yeah. Well, you can talk about, like, some children are naturally extroverted. You can talk about the whole concept of genius. It's just naturally who he is, and to ask him to be something different is going way against the grain. And it's just, yeah, talk about this kind of thing, Sam. Some children are more extroverted and exuberant and energized. Other children are more shy and quiet. If you using the language they might understand, you could say some children are shy and some children are outgoing. I've just got an outgoing one. And he's not broken. Stand by him. Stick up for him. He's not broken. He's perfect the way he is. Yeah, he's learning to temper his enthusiasm at times. That's okay.
Thank you, Angie. That's beautiful.
Does anybody else have any questions? How to see strengths of a toddler who gets distracted easily with a short attention span. Okay, so how to see the strengths? Well, toddlers do have a short attention span, full stop. They do. So already that's going to be So that's something that we deal with. How old's your toddler, Kay? Or the toddler you're talking about? Are you talking about 2, 3-year-old, maybe 2-year-old? I would say just expect every toddler to have a short attention span. It's like, when I would compare with children of same age, she has a short, okay, 2-year-old. Okay, don't worry about it, right? Just give her the freedom to explore. So you will find as between now and when she's say 3, 3.5, you will find that she will be able to focus for longer periods. Now is not the time to stress about it. I would say just offer lots of variety and lots of opportunity for her to engage in different situations. If you had to guess, what genius would you say she was, or do you not really have any idea at this stage? What's she like in social situations? Is she shy, or is she sometimes shy, sometimes not? It could be that she's dynamo energy. Is she's social? Yeah, okay. Yeah. So she might be a bit like Sam's child, who's might be between Blaze and Dynamo, very sociable, but also very busy, very task focused. So the best thing to do for 2-year-olds is to provide lots of different activities, sensory, natural, heuristic play, loose parts play, provide lots for her to explore and just allow her to explore them and observe what she's interested in and observe what she engages in most. It's very, very normal for 2-year-olds to be very distracted. And it's just the nature of children. Your child compared to other children, I can see what you're saying there. Compared to others, she has a short attention span, but we all develop at different rates. We all grow at different rates, and 2 or 3 months can make a massive, massive difference. So I would say, don't stress about it. Just keep supporting her and keep providing lots of opportunities for exploration, and just allow her personality to develop. Some children can sit for math time, wriggles and rhymes. She will go off and do something else. Okay, so as early childhood teachers, we say that we never ever expect a 2-year-old to sit through a whole math time. Expect it. It's not a realistic expectation. Many will, and many will sit through some and not through others, but some children just won't. And what we want to do is, in exploring their environment, children are learning about their environment and the world around them, but they're also learning about themselves too. They're learning about what it feels like to engage in this situation, as opposed to what it feels like to be part of this situation. And they're learning in every situation. You can't separate the emotion from the learning experience. Every learning experience is an emotional one. Now, if you observe your child during math time, right, and she doesn't like being part of it, it might be because she's too busy. Her mind's going all the time. It might be that she wants to be doing other things and learning something else. She might just not be interested in what's happening at that math time. So there are a couple of strategies. If you believe it's really important she does sit at the math time, you can adopt strategies like you sitting with her, or a teacher sitting with her for a while, giving her a fidget object to hold while she participates in what's happening. But if she's really not interested at 2, it doesn't matter. Just let her go and do something else. We always say, don't force them to participate. Allow them to quietly engage in other activities, and when they're ready, they'll come back. You don't want to be forcing her into structured learning before she's really old enough to cope with that and manage it. So when she's interested, she'll come back to it. Sorry, that was a long answer to a short question. But the last thing you want to do is force children, particularly at 2, If they're exploring and engaged, then they're learning. So what's the value of that math time for her learning, when it could be that she walks off and she's really engaged with another resource or piece of equipment, and there'll be more learning happening there than if she sat at the math time. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. By 5, you might expect that she'd be able to sit through a math time. By 4, maybe she could, as long as the math time didn't go on for too long. But even for a 4-year-old, they can struggle sometimes if it's a long math time, or with all due respect, some math times can be really boring. So, and some very interesting. So I just wouldn't sweat it right now. Just don't sweat the small stuff and allow her to be who she is and explore everything else. Cool. Sam, I think I've done quite well on timing today.
Yes, you did. You did.
So if we've got no more questions, then we can finish off now. Our next webinar will be looking at the 4 temperaments, the 4 genius types, and then look how you can teach your child when you understand their genius. So it covers some of the things we've talked about here, but if you know your child is introverted, then what do you do to support your child in social situations, and how do you help them learn to get the best out of them, and the same for all of them. So, and why it's important to have a very holistic, balanced approach to the learning opportunities we provide. All right, if we've got no questions, then I shall say farewell and see you next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Welcome, Anna. See you next time. Bye.